Welcome, everybody. This is the Fall Line with Chaos and Company. And before we get started, as always, I'd like to thank the friends of the podcast and our sponsors, because without them, it wouldn't be as easy, and they're definitely super supportive. So hopefully you can support them. And Blizzard Tecnica, who's supported us now for 3 years. It's been awesome. And then also Nick's Boot Fitting, Nick over at Mount Snow, fitting all the boots. And then also Rollerblade with Miles Cotter Sparrow. And when you're not skiing and we don't have snow, we can get on the rollerblades. But if you can support those sponsors, it helps us and it helps them and it keeps the podcast going. And Angelo, before we get rolling, man, it's been a rough Eastern winter so far, but you went west and there's some cool pictures. And thank you for bringing back the snow and the cold, brother.
You're welcome. My suitcase is ruined. But I took one for the team. We were at Salt Lake City last Tuesday for a meeting, PSIA-ASI meeting, and had a little opportunity on Wednesday to cruise up the Powder Mountain. Real generous guys up there took nice care of us, and even brought the thunder with the snow. It was like head shots, face shots all day long. So, yeah, beautiful time, beautiful hill. Happy to bring that snow back for you too. Yeah,
I heard you get teased because you had an 82. You brought your carving ski.
Yep. Yeah. It's right. Perspective is funny. Like that's one of my wider skis in my kit. And Kevin Mitchell, who's the GM at Powder Mountain, was generous to hook us up with a guide. And she looked at my skis and she's like, "You brought your carving skis?" And I'm like, "Those are 82s." Like, we had different impressions of what that ski was going to do. But she said, "Look," I was like, "Oh, I have some skinnier ones." And she's like, "What's skinny?" I said, 69. She's like, "Oh my God, it's worthless." I've never even seen that here.
Oh man, that's awesome. But hey, this is going to be a great podcast today, folks. We have Christian Avery, who is Blizzard Tecnica's product manager of North America, and he is here to chat with us about all the new stuff that's coming out, and it's going to be awesome. If you're a gear person or you want to know what's new, we've got the guy here that knows all the stuff about it, and it's great to see you, Christian.
Likewise, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we got to ask you, because I know a little bit about you I know our listeners love the question of how you learned how to ski, and was it with family or friends or with your buddies? And when was the first time? How old?
Unlike many people, my family was not generational skiers. Mom kind of picked it up in high school as a hobby and then kind of left it alone for a long, long time. Then when she had kids, we were living in the North, or she was living in the Northeast, and kind of decided, well, everyone skis in the Northeast here, so might as well introduce them to the sport. So at about 2 or 3 years old was the first time that I got on snow, and it was one of those things. She didn't know anything about ski racing. She didn't really know any of the other categories of skiing, but knew it was a fun activity to slide around with. So she taught me kind of the first time when I was 2 or 3, and then put me right into the ski school, the kind of local programs.
Oh, that's cool. And I know you've done a lot of racing through your young age and growing up through some of the academies and with the high school, and then absolutely in the at Clarkson University race for them.
Yeah, it was good fun. I mean, ski racing is an incredible sport for both just, how it humbles you, but also you can have incredible highs at the same time. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I kind of progressed from the ski schools there right into the racing programs. It's kind of like the linear progression in the East anyways. Is like, if you want to keep, progressing in skiing, you immediately just jump into one of those racing programs. So was with Ford Sayre and then migrated to Ford Sayre Academy. And, funnily enough, we'll actually probably talk about it later on, but Leslie Baker Brown, who's now the global director of our Women to Women program, was actually my coach in middle school and into high school there for a little while, which is just funny connection to make back, and incredible they let me work here after her meeting me in middle school and high school and seeing what an annoying brat I was that day. So,
and you've been an athlete your whole life, because there's a lot with cross country running. I think you did that through high school, and I don't know if you're still today, but I know I've seen some things on your Facebook posts in the past of doing some pretty heavy duty runs out there, challenges. Was it one at Killington?
Yeah, try to stay active as much as possible. Did the cross country team through high school as a kind of counter seasonal thing for ski racing, and then got a little bit more into weight training. Once I graduated, kind of started jumping into some Spartan races and things like that. So those like obstacle course activities. did that all the way up until I ended up training and basically just did a marathon. And after I did a marathon, I pretty much haven't touched running since. That was kind of like I got my fill out of it. Now I'm pretty heavy on the mountain bike side of things. That's kind of my counter seasonal sport of choice now.
Oh, that's cool. So we're here to talk skis and boots, and we're super excited because it's been a great relationship with Blizzard Tecnica supporting us for the last 3 years with the podcast, and great stuff. And I'm amazed. There's so much talk out there. The buzz. I mean, the Bull line going away, going to bed for after a decade. I mean, and the Bonafide has been out there on top of the world for so long, and the Brahma right behind it. The whole line. What's coming in? The Anomaly sounds awesome, and I've heard some great things. I think we should probably start there. Can you tell us a little about the Anomaly and the line of skis?
Yeah, it's a pretty massive year for us, and this is also following a pretty big year last year with brand new Rustlers and Chivas, which are also been really important skis in the line for quite a while now. And yeah, it's funny, right? As the world is finding out about the Bulls going to bed, I'm starting to sleep a little bit better because we've been working on it for so long. So like the announcement is now out, and at least like we're talking about it, and people are kind of grappling with that notion. So yeah, for us, I mean, on the Blizzard side of things, it's essentially just starting in a fresh direction, a kind of new path for our identity in the all mountain space, which is certainly not something we take lightly. Like it's a collective inhale anytime you're putting some iconic names to bed and trying to establish a new name that people don't know when they're walking into shop if they're not necessarily paying attention to what's going on from Blizzard. But for us, it was really the right time. I mean, we've had Brahmas and Bonafides and Cochise for almost a decade plus at this point. And so for us to kind of do what we wanted to do in the category and change the skis the way we wanted to and have them kind of talked about different, thought about a little bit different, how they work with the Rustlers and Chiva line on the Black Pearl side as well. We really felt it was important to kind of change the narrative within that category, and that came with a new name there. So certainly not done lightly, but also hopefully done transparently enough that anyone who's Cochise, Bonafide, Brahma, absolute maven out there can go get a pair while they're still in stores right now before ultimately the new ones come next fall.
Yeah, and that's always the fear. I know as a skier that some skis I love, and I'm like, oh, I love this ski. And the Bonafide and Brahma, especially in that line, have just been. And in all skiing, people just love that, whether here in the East or out West. And so what are some of the specific changes? I know there's some things in shape. There's some different lengths. And even the widths have changed slightly on a couple of models, going from like the 82 Brahma and the Anomaly is now at 84 for the bottom of the width, and then goes up to 88, and then to 94, and then I think 102.
Yeah, that's the full Anomaly line there. And yeah, I mean, absolutely every single piece is new compared to what had been the Bull series there. Brand new molds, brand new shapes, updated rocker profiles, new constructions. It is a top to bottom overhaul of the whole category. So lots to unpack there for sure, but years of work going into it. So yeah, like you said, I mean, just starting from the waist widths there, our general thought was, and also we'll probably talk about it a little bit later on, but to clarify our all mountain line a little bit, we wanted to move that 82 just a little bit more into the kind of all mountain space, which is probably closer to that 85 to 100 something pocket there. So 2 millimeters, certainly not changing the game, but getting a little bit away from, say, the system ski sort of perception of the front side world there. 88, kind of that like central benchmark of like, you have an 88 in your quiver and that's your groomer ski, your slightly softer snow one. One of the bigger changes is the Bonafide that had been 98, then 97, now in the Anomaly 94. That's a pretty sizable waist width change on that side to try and sequence it a little bit better. It's the kind of culmination of 2 years of moving both the Rustler waist widths around and making room for these. So last year, Rustler 9 went from 92 up to 96, and that was making actually room for this ski to slot in at 94, kind of feeling like there's probably a mental line of demarcation in that all mountain space around 95 millimeters. So let's get that, wider than double TI ski, more planted in the kind of core all mountain world of sub 95 millimeters. But at the same time, I say all that, we're also a brand that, kind of identifies as having that wider, chargier double TI ski too. So, as terrifying as that the Cochise 106 is going away for those athletes and people that really love that ski, we've got the Anomaly 102. So, if a Rustler 10 isn't quite enough for you, we've got the double TI, even more powerful, really pretty impressive ski there too. So try to slide it a little bit more into the all mountain space, but also, let's say, even though it's completely new, keep some of the heritage and important through lines of the bull line into the Anomaly line here.
And there's plenty of metal still in it. And it was pretty interesting. I saw some stuff about how you're layering the metal, and there's 3 layers, but then I think the top layer is in 2 separate pieces.
Yeah, well, we kind of jokingly, or at least in a more fun way, refer to it as flux form, because we could have obviously assigned any number of technical acronyms. The prior Rustler version of it was DRT, which is dynamic release technology, which, for anyone to remember, like you'd have to be a pretty big fan of Blizzard to bother to learn the acronyms that were thrown out there. So at the very least, flux form is a more fun one to say when you're describing a technology. But in reality, what the goal is to really try and create a ski that's got all the benefits, the dampness, the stability, the confidence on mixed terrain and variable snow conditions of metal, but to lay it up in a much more, let's say, versatile, playful way. So we started messing with the concept as we were developing the Rustler line of skis, which, that prior version of DRT just had the metal that kind of tapered into the forebody of the ski and then ended at a certain point. The new version of that was the Titanol strips that ran all the way to the tips and tails and then weren't connected to allow that ski to be more torsionally soft in and out of the turns. We adapted that into the all mountain line, trying to give it a little bit more of the, let's say, free ride versatility of the Rustler line, while still maintaining that quantity of metal to still have that confidence. So, like you said, what you've got in the Anomaly line there is 3 individual stripes of Titanol. All 3 of those run the full length tip to tail in the Anomaly skis there. So quantity wise on that highest layer, you have a full sheet, as it were. But because it's broken up in those 3 individual layers, they really allow themselves to kind of shear against one another and interact in a little bit more free flowing kind of way from one another. So again, like I've said, the point being that you've got the stability and confidence of metal, but it's not sort of like locked in and torsionally stout as you're rolling into the turn there. Below that, True Blend wood core, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on. And then on the lowest layer of the Anomaly skis there, you've got that full sheet of TI on the very bottom, really close to the wood core. So still double TI skis if you want to kind of boil it all down to that as far as to the quantity of metal in there, but done in quite a different way that we've been working on for 3+ years now at this point.
Yeah, and I had to reach out. I reached out to a few of the team members, our PSA team members at Ski on Blizzard, and I heard back from like Bart Flynn, and heard back from George Flynn, Mike Hafer, and they chatted about the Anomaly, and some of their quotes were interesting because they were nervous. Like, is it going to change? Like, we're used to that power in the Blizzard ski, but all of them were, Hafer had it mostly on hard packed snow. They didn't have a lot of snow when he was testing it out, and he was amazed. I mean, his quote was, "The skis were very stable at speed, and shockingly, the width did not feel like it was too much for the front side testing ground." But he's super psyched to get into the off piece because it was so stable, but didn't feel that wide. And then Bart was super psyched because him and George felt it was really still playful, and it was actually more playful. George's comments were that it released easier, but it wasn't that it didn't have edge hold. It held as well or better, but it really seemed to release when you want it to.
Well, that's awesome to hear from all of them. Mike and I actually had an awesome day at Vail back in, I guess that was November now. It feels like forever ago. That's probably only a month and a half ago now. And yeah, I mean, it was Mike's first impression. He kind of got like the cold open after like not really hearing anything about the skis, and then gets handed a 188.94 and was like, away you go. What do you think? And yeah, I mean, he was super excited. We had some good testing conditions there. So awesome here, even after some more time on it. He wasn't just being nice to me on that day. He actually genuinely likes them too. Yeah, on the comments in general, like, I mean, the all mountain category is a weird category in the industry, right? Like, you've got such a broad spectrum of skis in that space, from ones that are kind of like medalist, narrow free ride skis that are like, really pretty soft snow oriented, but come in a narrower waist, all the way to probably ourselves in the prior version where, they are stout, almost like kind of wider race skis. So, when evaluating the category, but also, more importantly, maybe evaluating Blizzard's presence within that space. I mean, the first thing that rightfully so everyone would be nervous about was it just going to nerf the bowl line and totally move it into the center mass of just easy and, whatever skis. And for us, it was really important to keep that through line of who we are as a brand. I mean, we're a performance brand that makes skis that, the PSIA national team guys can get on, but also at the same time, like, ex-racers and weekend warriors can all have a good time on it. And so while it's an incredibly complicated endeavor to make skis that work for some of the best skiers in the world at the same time as they work for the people that, aren't that into it and just want to get out on the weekend. For us, it was really important to try and achieve that. So that's why a lot of the mental updates that are there. That's why you see us talking about the through lines of what the old bowl skis kind of did. Also in moving into a new direction where we're trying to open up that versatility, but keep that same level of performance. So no small feat, but at this point, I'm feeling like we did hopefully a pretty good job.
Yeah. Yeah, Angelo, man, it's from the comments I heard, and I talked to George on the phone last night, George Flynn, and I think you can be more of an artist on the ski than the old bowl line. And, Angelo loves that the style and loves us to be able to versatile, but even the top sheet, man, that graphic's pretty awesome, Angelo.
That's a fantastic graphic. There's no question. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking like, I'm going to have to try all these. But, And it's funny, Christian, when you were talking about that variety of all mountain skiing types, I was just thinking as you started to talk about that, the difficulty of designing an all mountain ski. Just consider the United States, the width of the United States and the differences in terrain and conditions and snow and all that stuff. I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of those conversations on how you do that. Like any insight you can give into that, I think folks will be interested in hearing. Like, how do you land on? Like, how do you just, all right, we've tried these and this is the one that's going to work in the most places?
Yeah, the simple answer is teamwork, which is maybe, not that sexy of an answer, but it's truly the one that we have, at the global level, we have a pretty incredible team that, genuinely listen to the feedback of North America. When we're talking about all mountain skis, I mean, we're talking about pretty North American centric skis. So while we're an Austrian brand at heart, we have a global team of people that not only really listen to and respect that feedback that's coming out of our market, but also more importantly, can take that feedback, translate it into something, tangible that hopefully lives up to the notion of best skiers in the world can get on it, but at the same time, works for the weekend warrior there. So it's a ton of feedback and kind of self-reflection and honest critique about what's working well and what's not working well with our skis, kind of trend analysis of what's going on from competitors with the skis they're launching, but also just, talking to people about how skiers are changing. I mean, the market has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years with more people getting into the category, kind of resort dynamics changing. And then honestly, just, trying to work through and really keep clearly in our mind, like who we're building skis for. I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost easier in some ways to build a really athlete specific project when it's, a very specific group of people you're targeting at versus all mountain skis that, like we said, is a pretty broad audience. But at the same time, even when we're talking about a massive category like all mountain, we, Blizzard really try to have a specific notion of who within that category we're speaking to. And, you can't make a ski that absolutely everybody at the end of the day is going to love, but you can try to make a ski that hopefully is different, hopefully has a story behind it, and hopefully has a performance and an appreciation that at least stands out from the rest there. That isn't just this ski is interchangeable with XYZ competitor models there. So no small feat for sure, but it's a lot of, honest self-reflection, tough conversations. And at the end of the day, like really strong global team to be able to do it.
And I would imagine, the conversations have to be pretty agile, like especially considering how the outdoor industry has changed as a result of COVID and people like new people becoming enthusiasts in whatever sports. That had to just completely accelerate those conversations on your end.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it requires a nimbleness on the development side that, is sometimes not beloved by the production side of the world that, has quotas and like timelines to meet in order to get to the product to market there. But, yeah, again, it's the global team that we have that is constantly listening for that feedback. Everybody's got a can-do attitude associated with it. When even right before this call, we were messing around with the sizes of a future project and like totally reinvented the curve we're on there. And it's one of those like, yep, that has pretty big implications for mold timings and kind of development. But like at the same time, everyone's like, well, is it the right thing to do? If yes, then like that's what we're going to do. Like that's. Yeah, it's no small feat for sure to be that nimble and agile, but it's also how we work as a brand in order to be able to deliver the products that we're proud of.
Dave, you mentioned that artwork. Do you mind talking about the artwork, Christian? It's terrific, and anybody who hasn't seen it, like I'm looking at it, I'm totally getting an EK like an ECG vibe, electrocardiogram vibe off of that, off of those mountain ranges, but. Like I'm looking at it sideways and it's like, it almost looks like Batman. I'm getting this like stealthy Batman. I'm going to swoop in vibe from just the middle of the ski, but there's also some little hidden gems up toward the tip and the tail there. You want to talk about that, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, going along with the name change is also kind of a visual change for ourselves in the space. I mean, the all mountain category, especially the last couple of years, because it's so competitive and there's so many people in there. Like, there's kind of an established, let's say, an aesthetic in that space. Like, even people using kind of consistent color palettes and consistent, fairly safe graphics because there's so many people buying them. And so for us, with moving in the direction of Anomaly, which not only has something to do with the performance, the way we're going to talk about them, we also wanted to really have a kind of visual Anomaly there. And the funny thing was, I mean, we spent a ton of time working on graphics, looking at different proposals, some totally off the wall and really crazy, some, more on the safe side that would, not necessarily live up to the Anomaly side. For us, it was quite easy to make a ski and a graphic that you could say was an Anomaly when you put it on the wall amongst competitors. Quite difficult to make one that is an Anomaly that everyone really liked. It's like, oh, that looks good and is an outlier from what we've seen in the space. So at the end of the day, the graphic that we've got here is one we're quite happy about it. We're really excited being able to both kind of stand out on the wall, hopefully a little bit with some of the colors and the top sheet materials and the aesthetic, but also have a little bit of a story associated with it. So hopefully, I don't know how well the skiers or the listeners can and viewers can see the ski behind me on the wall here, but there's kind of like the Wasatch Wiggles going down the length of the ski there. The idea being that, like, that's the powder farm, the kind of slope that everyone's just like making the same turns over and over and over again, kind of the every turn, if you will. And then the big white line on this 102 here is that like Anomaly skier just like making their own turns, skiing over everyone else's tracks. So, I mean, we use the term, the skier that's making 4 turns where everyone else is making 40 to kind of nod to like the mindset as much as anything else within the category. So try to represent that a little bit within the in the graphic. Each one of the different waist widths, because obviously the radius is changing by waist there, has a different number of turns that they're making across the entire slope there. 102 obviously being the fewest turns, 84 kind of being the most turns. And then, we've got that sort of graph across the middle there that, the spikes that people can maybe see, like that is exactly that. Like you've got this consistent line graph, hopefully on a rise. But at some point, something happens and there's an Anomaly spike within there. So, just trying to, like, let's say, bury little Easter eggs here and there that hopefully the graphic unto itself stands out and is interesting. But at the same time, once you kind of understand a little bit more, you kind of understand even more how it's trying to be an Anomaly unto itself.
Yeah.
I think hit it out of the park with the colors too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially the purple, right?
I love that purple ski, but I'm like right now that I've got the 84 and the 88 on my screen, and that blue, man, that blue, that electric blue color, I'm like a moth to a flame with that color, and then that it looks like an orange on my monitor, but it pop. That's such a good looking line.
Hey, that blue will go with our jackets next year, Angelo.
It'll look so nice.
So, and I don't think people realize, like, they go, oh, this is their new ski this year. They, made it this year. I mean, this had to be a multi-year, multi-part, like you were talking about. It's coming from multiple different skis. You already have some of that technology went into this.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the title of product manager, I guess, for 6 years now, and it was really 5 years ago when we kind of started down the track of like, all right, we know we're updating Rustler and Shiva, and then shortly thereafter, probably the all mountain skis are coming along with that. So even at that time, as we were figuring out the self-reflection, how are we changing the freeride skis? We were doing it in the notion of like, all right, what are some of the things we already maybe know we want to clean up or change or re-identify within the all mountain space there. So, I would say even 5 years ago was the first time we started putting waist widths on paper, kind of assembling the laundry list of things that we wanted to change a little bit. Obviously, we're finding it, getting feedback, kind of like bouncing that list off of people. And then really 3 years ago, at the same time as we were prototyping rustlers and Shivas, there were some sneaky ones in there that, in like some of the like selfish fun things that are fun as the product manager, were like, you just have a bunch of prototypes in front of you and like hand them out to people and like do some of the testing and like totally don't tell people what is in those skis to just get some feedback. There were a couple in there that had like some of the ideas that we've used into the new all mountain line here to even do a little bit of kind of future testing and research on the new Anomaly line here. So we were doing a little bit of testing even as we were going through with Rustler and Shiva 3 and 4 years ago. And then in the last 2 years has really been when we've dialed in like, all right, like we know exactly what the waist widths are. We really know kind of the construction direction and feeling we're trying to achieve here. And then it's just testing, getting as many people on those skis, again, like not being scared that if, you're getting some negative feedback or not liking exactly what something's doing, like, fully be ready to, make whatever changes are needed to get those skis to where they need to be. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of testing, a lot of feedback, a lot of sleepless nights, knowing that we're putting names like Bonafide and Brahma to bed. But with all that, again, like the skis and how they came out, I mean, we're so excited and feeling like hopefully whenever people have a chance to get on them, that there'll be that kind of aha moment, like, oh, I see like why this isn't just, named Bonafide and an extension of what we'd already been doing. Like this is a new direction and something fresh and really exciting.
Yeah. And it isn't just the Anomaly and the Brahma and the Bonafide going away. You came up with didn't revise the Black Pearl. It's like a brand new ski, brand new Black Pearl. And that must have been, I would think, even more nerve wracking because, I mean, hasn't that ski been like the number one ski of anything in North America for a few years?
Yeah, at least the last 4 or 5 now, it's been the number one selling ski in North America. But I would venture to even say like globally around one SKU, specifically that 88 is an unbelievable success story. And so, yeah, you think I lost a little bit of sleep working on that ski. We should get Leslie Baker-Brown back on the podcast and talk about how many sleepless nights she has had, knowing that we're refreshing those skis. And so, that conversation is even one that too kind of takes you down the direction of like, we know there's some things we want to improve about these skis, but at the same time, like the previous generation of Black Pearls were so good on themselves. So like, how do you take that and, kind of refresh it, change it, move it in a new direction, and at the same time, like bring everyone along with you? Because unlike the sort of Brahmas and Bonafide, we wanted to like sunset that name, that ideology, that voice, that aesthetic, and move in a new direction. Black Pearl is such a successful brand and a fan favorite that, really felt like we just wanted to keep that momentum rolling. So obviously kept the name there, but made the skis completely new. And with that, I mean, the terror that it is updating those skis is, reinforced or kind of combated by the work that we have with the women's group. I mean, the fact that we have this globally assembled group of women that are, have such diverse backgrounds and opinions. And, again, in that sort of like honest teamwork that I was mentioning before, like they are not afraid to tell you when they don't like something. And that is super important as you're going through the testing process. So as terrifying as it is to kind of update those skis, the group that Leslie's assembled and that we have to work with are the best in the world to be able to have some self-reflection, look at those skis and hopefully take them to the next level there.
Yeah. And I know you've mentioned that this is probably the most specific ski you've made for women. Is that how you term it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the things that have made Black Pearl so special, or what we mentioned there, which is the work with the women's group, the fact that we have this testing group, this feedback group that work on not only the product feedback and the aesthetics and the performance, but also obviously on the voice and the messaging and kind of the marketing that goes along with it. So when you have that, you can really take those skis and kind of put them in their hands to some extent. Obviously, like there's a development team in the background that takes that feedback and actually implements it. But because it's, they have such a strong, kind of capacity for being able to think critically about product and give you honest feedback. Often the way projects go is you start with one sample size, kind of test your side cuts, start messing with constructions. What we did here, because we knew that we had the women's group to really get that honest feedback, was we actually launched an Anomaly mold in a 182. It was actually the 94 was the first one there. And we launched a Black Pearl mold in a 170. put them in the hands of the kind of two specific groups and kind of let them run. And at that point, you're really managing two separate projects entirely, instead of like, kind of going back and forth, and you've got, one mold with just different constructions and what you're messing with. You've got two completely independent projects, which is a lot to manage on sort of like the product management and development side of things. But it's how you get to the finish line here, where, we've got brand new Black Pearl skis where they share some of the construction ideologies of Anomaly. But at the end of the day, from a, let's say, construction layup, there are no two pieces of a Black Pearl ski that are shared with an Anomaly ski. And that is the result of the women's group kind of just taking the reins and like giving clear feedback, testing, going back and forth, making some changes, testing it again, and going in a new direction. At the end of the day, like, we've got two collections of skis here that are completely independent from one another, and especially the Black Pearls are, could not be literally more specifically designed kind of by women for women there.
Yep.
Can you talk about the HRC a little bit, where that might be heading?
On the Firebird line of skis, what's been, right in front of us for a while now is obviously working on the freeride categories, working in the all mountain categories. At the same time, obviously, we've got such a wide breadth of collection there. Trying to make some updates in the other categories, where we also know we can make some improvements. And one of the biggest ones was, just bringing True Blend across the entire collection as quickly as we possibly could. So last year, in the same year that we updated the Rustlers and Chivas with completely new molds and shapes, we were able to get a different version of True Blend into the Firebird skis there, as well as have obviously the HRC go from 76 underfoot to 69 underfoot there. And, the incorporation of True Blend into any skis really does fundamentally change the performance of them, but especially putting it in the Firebird line and using some poplar and ash, which ash is a pretty insane wood to be using in general, but is super fun and has a massive influence over the performance of those skis. So even though a lot of, let's say, sleepless nights and the testing and really kind of reinventing everything was in the freeride space last year, getting True Blend into the Firebird skis there, hopefully, and I think you guys agree, took those skis from already a pretty high performance level just to the next one there. And that just speaks to what True Blend is capable of in every line.
I loved the HRC when it was 76, and I couldn't believe how much fun this was at 69 underfoot.
We were nervous though, weren't we, Angelo?
I was a little nervous because because I get it. Like I was attached to that HRC last year and a couple of years before that, but man, this is a machine. It's fall line oriented and just fun. Just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, Baloo who talked about it? So I'm trying to think here, and one of the guys from the team, it was Jonathan. Jonathan talked about the new HRC, and he described it just like that, Angelo. It is the new shape and width makes the ski feel more versatile and a longer slalom ski. Yeah, he felt like he can take it as a slalom ski as he wants, but it's a longer one and got the stability. And that's what I feel. I was nervous, just as Angelo was, going down to a narrow. I'm going, is this just going to be another WRC? So I got two, and it's like, it's not. It's no. Definitely a separate ski from the WRC.
No, and you can't rattle it. I mean, I haven't rattled it yet.
The only thing here in the East, I haven't wanted to take it out because of the thin snow after Pro Jam, but it's going back out this week. But no, that's a rocking ski. So there's got to be. We'll see if he can tell us, Angelo. There's got to be something going on with the WRC. I've heard some hints. A few people have said some things. Is there things going on at WRC, and when's that coming?
Well, I'd say that's from the total collection kind of overview. Now that we've gotten, I say through in air quotes, like you're never done with a project. There's always a tail and things to clean up. But now we've kind of gotten through the full refreshes of the freeride line, full refreshes of the all mountain line. I would say we're able to kind of turn our attention to those other categories. And I say other categories as Firebird, Thunderbird, Phoenix, even Zero G to some extent, like the kind of rest of the line, the bookends there as what are the things that we can now, clean up, change, add, refine in that space. And, I can't say too much about what's coming in there, but especially the interaction between Firebird and Thunderbird, that's one that, has been really fun to kind of have some shared molds in between the Firebird line, Thunderbird line, different performances between them, and now kind of like mixing and matching the performances a little bit better so that they have hopefully a clear definition from one to another, but also some, let's say more waste with more opportunities within both lines there. So hopefully that's vague enough, but exciting enough to say we're got some stuff coming. It's going to be good.
Yeah, because you definitely have some stuff out on people's feet in that WRC ski test and stuff, I think, right?
Yeah, there could be some out there in the wild if you've got a keen eye, for sure.
I've heard some things, saw some things. I saw a pair at Killington in the fall. Yep. But I won't say anymore. I don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to get in trouble, Angelo.
I don't want to get in trouble.
But that's kind of, and you mentioned the Thunderbird, and that's been a fun ski for me. I mean, the Firebird line, that's where I'm a fan. That's my skis that I'm here in the East mostly on. But the Thunderbird is fun, man. You get some great snow out here in the East. It's you get on it, and the sweet spot is huge. You know, you don't have to be right on top of it all the time. And there's a lot of, that's kind of an interesting section of the line, because you got the Firebird line and we got all the all mountain stuff and the touring stuff, the free ride. And then you have that in the Phoenix, the Thunderbird Phoenix in that line there. And that falls in between. It overlaps a lot of people. And is it going to stay? Is it a big line? I mean, where does it fit in?
It's the challenge of trying to always build skis for specific people, right? Like we try to look at the entire collection and also the categories and have, again, like specific skiers within our sort of mind of who we're building for, but at the same time, like have the entire collection make sense with one another. So try to limit too much overlapping in waist widths, too much like, well, why would I have that ski if I already have that ski? Like the idea would be that every single model in waist width has a reason to live, and that like if money were no object, there would be a reason to have all of them potentially there. So, Thunderbird kind of arose out of the notion that like if you look at the frontside category in general, you have people who are either ex-racers or kind of like relevant to the race world there. So like that's kind of Firebird, right? Like it's connected to the real race stock. It's informed by some of the plates, the constructions, the sort of ash wood cores that are the really demanding skis that have that maximum level of performance. But at the same time, unless you're in really good shape, aren't necessarily skis that you would ski like bell to bell, because they're going to require you being kind of on top of it, paying attention, really deliberately putting your turns down the slope. And then obviously kind of on the other, like moving farther away, you have that all mountain space where it's like, yes, I want to ski this bell to bell. I, want a lot of performance in my skis, but I also like, when I mess up and I'm jumping into the bumps and into the trees, like I don't want to be punished the way necessarily like a demanding frontside ski would. So in between those is where we kind of see Thunderbird and Phoenix living, where, we wouldn't refer to them necessarily as all mountain skis, but they definitely kind of blend the space in between like a race frontside Firebird ski and that all mountain space there. So the goal was to build, incredibly premium, high quality skis that, have a ton of performance. And, if you're a Baloo of the world, like you can stomp on that ski, really get it to come around and not necessarily want something more than that as far as from a performance standpoint. Like it's got everything there for you, but at the same time, utilizing True Blend and this sort of like, let's say more forgiving shapes in those skis versus the Firebird line, that at the end of the day, like that could be your ski and you could ski it all day on trail there and not necessarily be as, let's say, punished for getting tired or off balance, let's say on a Firebird line there. So try to have Thunderbird and Phoenix really live up to that, like, let's say front side space there, but in a more like, let's say, accessible and all day use kind of application than the Firebird skis.
Yep.
Punished. I've been punished. I'm laughing because I've been punished.
Yep. It's happened for sure. We all get tired into the back seat and you like load it up and you're like, all right, like maybe it's time for a coffee.
Little different vibe, but I'm curious, Christian. I've been in some conversations over the last couple of years, and like global events are tenuous, and we mentioned the pandemic, and we all know how that's changed the industry. But in terms of like getting materials, have you? I'm under the impression some current global events have made that challenging for manufacturers. Has Blizzard had to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean the ski industry is fortunate and challenged by the notion that it is a very small industry. So on the one hand, like you have kind of direct and awesome relationships with all your suppliers, but at the same time, you only have a few suppliers. So when staff gets sick or, what is, our raw material is their finished product. So they have raw materials behind that. When a supplier up the chain from that, has a hiccup or something like that, you feel it pretty quickly there. So certainly through the pandemic and, the supply chain challenge that everyone is familiar with, we were certainly not not sheltered from that by any means. And half of the R&D time, as much as you would love that to be like testing new constructions and innovative materials, a lot of that R&D time was spent very clearly know how we want the ski to ski. The materials that we were making that ski out of are no longer available. What do you do? So you have to either change suppliers or kind of figure out a new way to do it. So a lot of the R&D time over the last 3 years is even taking the existing models and kind of reinventing them with different materials, new suppliers, and working in that direction. So hopefully, from a consumer standpoint, at the end of the day, like if you grabbed an HRC of this year and compared it to, HRC is not a good example because that one changed last a little while ago. But let's say a Thunderbird, for example, that's been in the line for 3 years now. If you grab the one from this year and compared it to the one to 3 years ago, hopefully the average consumer would not notice a difference. But at the end of the day, like there are also some different materials in there from 3 years ago. So that's just the challenge of the world we're in these days with supply chains and lead times and trying to respond to what's happening around the world there.
Well, some good surprises must come out of that with that though. You must find a couple products that you put in and get a result that you didn't expect.
Every now and again, we would refer to that as a happy accident of like what was beginning to be a headache because you had to completely, reinvent a ski and try some new materials. We're like, oh, like actually the supplier has a pretty interesting material that we want to use. I mean, it's not talked a whole lot about the industry, like the different fiberglasses and pre-preg layers that go into skis, but they have a massive influence over the performance in skis. And that was one of the big ones that, as we were kind of just like working with different suppliers and like, okay, this specific blend of fiberglass and carbon and pre-pregs aren't available. Like, what's the new one you want to try? And that was probably the place that we'd have the most happy accidents, if we want to call that, as far as like, oh, that actually was like a pretty interesting change within the ski there.
Yeah.
So what's your daily driver? Boots and skis, and tell the people how you like to ski, please.
So we mentioned X-Racer as far as like, the kind of learn how to ski. So it's, a lot of my time is spent just making turns around the trail. I'm not much for the air time as much as that is an aspirational aspect. It's not necessarily within my wheelhouse very well. So with that, I mean, let's say race background, but trying to, broaden my horizons and get, into the backcountry, into, the other parts of the mountain and explore a little bit better. And that was for me part of the reason to even get into the industry was to experience the categories and go places and do things that, while you might travel a lot and see lots of mountains as a skier, so you don't necessarily get to experience them and you have a very specific view on the type of skiing. So for me at this point, my daily driver is still a Firebird R as far as a boot. Because I like that forward lean setup. I have a 103 millimeter wide foot, but we're still stuffing it in a 96 millimeter wide boot because that's the fit tension that I grew up and kind of appreciate and got used to. So still in a kind of tuned down but race-ish style of boot. But at this point, I mean, my daily driver, if it's a sort of like resort day, is going to be an Anomaly at this point. Now that I can like, let's say, ski that out in the wild and not have to answer questions or defend what I'm doing. Or if it's a powder day, then grabbing a Rustler. Those are kind of like the two main daily drivers, if you will. But at the same time, let's say all the skis we mentioned previously, whether it's a Firebird, Thunderbird, or we haven't gotten into the touring world yet, but make sure to have at least something in every one of those spaces to try and do it all as much as possible.
Right on.
Yeah. And speaking of the Rustler's another one, I wanted to ask you, does Blizzard see all the folks out there putting telly bindings on their skis, on the Bonafides, on the Brahmas? I mean, the Rustler's been a big one. A ski a few years ago that didn't stay around too long. I don't think it was the Bushwhacker that you had that was getting telly bindings a lot. I've got them on the Thunderbird. I got Alpine and telly on the Thunderbird. Love it. I know Greg Dixon's got the HRC. Is that seen or noticed?
In my space, I notice it most because lots of people asking about compatibility between a telly binding and the skis. How can you mount it? Where are you able to mount it? What's the correct zone and the pull out force and the tension? So I kind of get like the least fun questions out of telly world there. But the volume of the questions, certainly led me to understand like there's quite a lot of people utilizing the skis in that way and appreciating the performance in Rustler line and the previous Bull line, hopefully the new Anomaly line here. But see it, I think I'm just not necessarily in that space as much as maybe some others are to totally see all the tele skiers out there on Blizzard skis. But if they're a fan of the product, I'm a fan of them. So we don't have beef between me and the tele community.
Yeah. Angela and I have a bunch mounted up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Brahma 82 for me is like I just love it as a tele ski. I have an Alpine set up, and it's you can't make a bad turn. It performs. You can point them straight down the hill, and you can mess up and not have your ass handed to you at the same time. I think that one for my size, my style, the things I like to do, that's such a safe bet. Terrific.
Well.
And as we go into those
future, go
ahead. Sorry.
Maybe in future world, whenever life gets super easy and there's not as much to do, we'll do some proper tele feedback sessions and see what within the line we can change or find better optimize for the tele world there. Because ski side, I mean it's like I said, a kind of an unknown space to me about what we could maybe be offering better in that market.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you if you have an uphill setup for you.
Oh, yeah. I got plenty of uphill setups. Yeah, even I happen to be in Park City right now, getting ready for some trade fairs that are next week. And I made sure to fly with the 0G setup to go uphill with. That's been, the diametric opposite of ski racing was kind of starting to go uphill and explore that space. And that's been one of the most fun categories for me to get more into over the last 10 years that I've been working for the company now. And at the same time working for Blizzard as a brand. I mean, Blizzard's a fairly young brand into the uphill space in general. And so with that comes also a different perspective on how to build skis there. And it fits quite well with both my history as a skier, but also my kind of understanding and getting more into the category versus people who, that was their first category that they got into and got familiarized with skiing with.
Yeah, and all the skis we've talked about, and we still have the Rustler line. You've got the Hustler. You got the 0Gs. I mean, it's just hitting a lot of different categories with a lot of hot skis.
Trying to as much as possible, yeah. Especially, we mentioned the pandemic and the implications that had on the supply chain, on the collection too. I mean, because there were questions around lift access, questions around, how much do you want to really be standing in lift lines and going in lodges? The uphill space in general, I mean, got really popular in the last couple of years. And so that's why you saw the advent of Hustle, which was, out of the Rustler mold, so free ride shape, but done in a more backcountry centric way where those skis are a little bit more soft snow optimized than the Rustler line. And then obviously 0G where we've got the pure touring skis where weight's kind of that top priority. Of course, there's performance, they need to hold up, but they're really lightweight skis there. And so at the same time as, Blizzard's only been making touring skis for, I'd say 9 years now, something like that in a dedicated way. The last 3-4 years here is, the number of SKUs and models within that offering, but also our comprehension of how people are even using those skis has really refined quite a lot. So again, one of those, I'm going to nod to the future, lots more to come in the uphill space from Blizzard. For sure.
Well, yeah, that's what I was asking. Cause I mean, Russell's been there and we're not seeing anything right now. And, Hustle was big, last year when it was the last year it was launch. And then, I know you've been making constant changes, improvements with the 0G stuff, but, there's some stuff next year probably coming. We'll hear in January next year, probably.
Yep, most likely you'll be seeing some new updates for us in that. Let's say just call it the entire walking world kind of updates for next year or the year after, depending on your interaction with when products deliver.
Yeah. Now it's interesting to me. I want to ask you because as Angela was asking you about the global the supply chain and that, how much of the secret to keeping things secret of what's coming out is sometimes it's okay, we got to make sure we make it. Where if we aren't able to get certain products, we might not get this done.
It's the game, right? I mean, there's a very fine line between teasing and kind of sneaking things and getting people excited about something that you're working on that you definitely know is going to get finished, is going to be delivered to the market at a certain point. You kind of establish the deliverables for a project versus the pure testing, pure prototyping of hey, we have no idea where this is going, if we're going to do anything with this, and we don't totally want to tip our hand about what we're working on. I tend to think that just myself, I have probably, let's say, a little bit more liberal kind of approach towards skiing is cool. It's super fun. Like we are not splitting the atom here or working on rockets or anything like that. So like, if you've got something cool that you're, feel good about the performance you're testing, like, it's probably better to err on the side of like sneak and stoke and like, oh, Blizzard's working on something than it is to like just totally do it behind closed doors and like, closed glaciers up in the high Dolomites there. So yeah, with that, I mean, it's the challenge of like getting the right people on those skis and getting the feedback that you want to be able to vet them thoroughly, with also making sure that when you ultimately are like done with the project and want to release it and unveil it to the world, that like, the catalog didn't leak 3 weeks before the embargo date, and everyone's like, yeah, seen those, whatever.
Oh, and there's not just skis, there's boots. And
we make those too, yeah.
Yeah, the boots, old Tecnica boots. And it's been amazing with the custom adaptive shape liners and how that's developed. I mean, that liner every year seems to be tweaked to make it better, shape better. I know changed some of the materials the last couple of years to make it easier to mold, that kind of stuff, and hold. What's going on with liners? Is there anything coming in the mock line?
Yeah, we mentioned on the ski side, like that sort of honest self-reflection that goes into the development process of like, what you feel like you can improve and take into the next generation there. And CAS, custom adaptive shape, that's one of those acronyms that might be if you know one still. But yeah, that was launched almost a decade ago as well. And the first ideology of CAS was like, how do we build a boot that has the maximum level of performance, longevity, and customization that fits right out of the box there. And what we've learned over the last decade, and the reason we keep making incremental changes, is we keep learning a little bit better about how to have those different materials interact with one another in a way where you have that performance within the boot on the slope there. You have that longevity where the liner doesn't pack out after 10, 20, 30 days, whatever it is there. At the same time that you get that really good fit out of the box that can still be customized. And like, there's no small feat to get all of those things into one package there. And especially with some of the material changes we've making recently, where we're trying to integrate a little bit more of a sustainable approach. So using some of the materials we're getting back from the Recycle Your Boot program that's existing in Europe there, and integrating those into the new production liners there. So what you'll see for essentially delivering next year is an entire refresh through the Mach 1 line, both on the men's side as well as the women's side, where the kind of first thing was, all right, how do we take the existing platform, fit, performance, customization, all the things that I mentioned, keep those as through lines, but get them just a little bit more comfortable right out of the box. I mean, CAS in the first generation a decade ago had that fit, performance, customization, but that fit one was pretty harsh and aggressive for sure. It was definitely like, oh, if you're coming out of race boots, like you really like that fit. If this is maybe your first, more expensive or premium or high end boot there, like, definitely a little bit more of an aggressive fit right out of the box than some of the let's say other options on the market there. So what we're doing for next year is hopefully maintaining those same tenets of customization, performance, longevity, and just kind of updating the first initial fit to have a little bit more, let's say, wow factor right out of the box there. So making some updates, getting a little bit more comfortable, but at the same time keeping those really important through lines for how Tecnica wants to be perceived and ultimately have boots within the larger all mountain category, if that's what we want to call Mach 1.
Yeah. And it's interesting that some of the new stuff will come out on one of the boots in the line. For example, Angela's heard this story and Christian was part of this story. He might not remember, but when you came out with T-Drive on the, it didn't come in the low volume the first year. I think it came out on the medium volume. And so Troy and I were like, hey, we're talking to Nick Blaylock and like, maybe we can get those parts. Can we like put some holes in and get the carbon piece on the back? And I remember sending you an email. And I remember getting an email back and going, yes, I don't recommend you do that. And I don't want you to do that. And I won't send you the parts. So even if you get them from someone else other than me, please don't do that.
Yeah, it was one of those like, let us do that. Let us build the boot, optimize the T-Drive there. Yeah, it's so for like the listeners that maybe aren't totally familiar with how Tecnica lays out the Mach collection is, a lot of manufacturers approach the sort of fit portfolios within that category very vertically. Like you'd have a 98 millimeter category, you'd have a 100 millimeter wide category, and then your 103s. For us, we looked at the space and it's like, the person didn't choose whether they have a wide foot or narrow foot. Likewise, like that wide or narrow foot doesn't know whether it's attached to a high performance skier or a sport performance skier. So we lay out the category much more horizontally, where 130s, 120s, 110s, 100s on the men's side, and then obviously the corresponding fits on the women's side. We try to, as much as possible, have the performance the same and the aesthetic the same across all of those flexes, and keep the performance there, and then just kind of delineate them by model. That way, when you walk into a boot shop, or, if you're like me and you have a high volume foot, but consider yourself a high performance skier, you're not pigeonholed into a boot that, is just sport performance because it is wide. Like you can have that high performance fit in a high volume application there. So bringing that all the way back around to where we're talking about T-Drive is the handcuffs of that is it is unlikely that you will ever have the, let's say, development capacity within a given year to update all of your all mountain boots in a single year. So especially with T-Drive, where, that's a pretty significant mold overhaul in order to get the spine of the boot re-engineered between the cuff and the lower shell, refine the kind of plastic wall thicknesses and the sort of overall anatomy of the boot there. Like you're talking about, the first year it dropped in that MV boot and we're like, oh, we have something super cool here. How rapidly can we get it to LV? How rapidly can we get it to HV? And the challenge of the volume concept we refer to as the handcuffs usually is that's about 3 years to get all three models done. So even if you have something super cool, it takes a little bit to get it to every single model within the line.
Yeah. Is there sometimes that happens that you're still looking for, not necessarily like, hey, we'll see if this works, but you're not sure it works on another boot or on the ski sometimes if it's a little different, because when we go from a low volume to high volume, was there some difference in how the T-Drive reacted? I don't know. Is it the same?
T-Drive is one of those ones that, once we sort of got the fundamental understanding about how it was changing the performance within the MV there, because T-Drive, when it first came out in that MV, was also a new MV mold, a new MV shape that was designed with the notion that we were using T-Drive. So understanding the sort of interactions about how that changed, energy moving through the boot's fitting and functioning, we were able to pretty quickly apply that to LV and HV and kind of just change the anatomy of the boot to better work with T-Drive versus, say, adapting T-Drive to the different fit options there. But it's one of the cool things about just like how technology works across the whole line. Where, do you know where T-Drive came from as far as like the ideation, the notion within the collection? No. It came from the zero G boots, actually, which is a hilarious concept where lots of brands talk about like, what World Cup racing as far as innovation kind of teaches them about what they can do with the rest of the line. For us, it's been the case that more often than not, our innovations or our new technologies have come from the walking world, because those boots are so wild that you need to have a bunch of performance, and it needs to have the cuff be free, and it needs, X, Y, Z in those boots. So when we launched what was the new zero G boot in the 1920 collection there, 2019-20 season, we used a walk mechanism that had like a double blocking feature in it. It was connected up high, down low, kind of had a really extended spine, completely changed dramatically how well that boot could work with really lightweight materials and thin walls. And it was like this, holy shit moment, a little bit of like, oh, wow, that had a pretty dramatic influence over the performance within the boot here, and immediately kind of launched us on the path of like, okay, like, how do you get that, and can you use that in an all mountain line? And that eventually is what obviously turned into T-Drive there, which at the end of the day, T-Drive obviously has a lot of materials and sort of interaction within the boot there, but it has just changed the connection point of, instead of being pinned and just two kind of bolts right in the back of the boot, you're opening up that lever arm and having more material kind of pull from and interact with and make the boot more efficient.
Yeah. It's made it more uniform, I think. That's just one of the things I feel. It's, that's what Nick was talking about when we were going to that, and it definitely, it's more consistent. Doesn't matter the temperature outside, whatever. I feel like I'm in the same boot every day.
That was the goal too. Is a lot of boots rely on, let's say, the thickness, the density, the kind of like plastic feeling that you're getting there. And so, obviously, if you're skiing on a 50-degree day versus say a sub-zero day, like, plastic is temperature sensitive and it will have an interaction, versus when you're using the carbon fibers to kind of generate the flex and the power and the feeling. Carbon fiber is not particularly temperature sensitive compared to the plastics that we're using in ski boots there. So exactly like you said, amongst all of the other like performance benefits that you get with T-Drive unto itself is also less temperature sensitivity of the performance of your boot day to day.
Yeah. So as technology comes from other things, will we see anything in the mock that might be on a different boot right now, like the R boot or?
I would say, this is now talking about like in a kind of like script flip, if you will, of like what World Cup racing is learning from from the retail line is that Laura Coltori, who's one of our young guns on the World Cup there, for quite a while she was working with a Firebird boot there that had a R&D version of T-Drive there, and so this is one of those, like, definitely can't volunteer too much about what's coming down the line there, but it's one of those, like, as a brand and as a collection, like, definitely paying attention, testing lots of things, and surprisingly, as far as like, in my world, a lot of it coming from what we're already doing in the existing, let's say, retail, if you want to put that in air quotes, like retail line, as opposed to the Firebird line and World Cup lines there.
Yeah. I know something's coming. And you got a lot of the boot companies, and I know Tecnica is also, you're going to have some BOAs on some stuff. I think we have it on a couple now, don't we, this year?
Yeah, and obviously, for the keen observers within the market, we know that BOA was a massive, massive conversation this last year. There were 4 brands that kind of jumped into it the last cycle, kind of did some early intro product even last winter. And for us, I mean, BOA, the supplier, as it was, approached us around the same time as they did those manufacturers. And for us, I mean, what we happened to be working on in that particular cycle was Coach's HVs and a 4-buckle junior boot. So there wasn't like a project immediately on the desk there that we were like, oh, like, clearly that is a logical place to put this closure mechanism. And as we always do with technologies and innovation and whatever it is, I mean, we wanted to take it in-house, test it, really understand it, see how it changed the sort of fit of the lower shells there. So over the last 2 years, we've really been working and understanding, trying to figure out how we could utilize the BOA fit system within our collection. So what you'll see from us delivering next year is a line of BOA boots done in an HV application, because it was our finding that to really have that sort of like wrapping feeling over the top of the foot, you needed quite a lot of material in the lower shell there to allow it to kind of drag across the top of the foot, as well as some nice soft liner material to really get that kind of wrapping closure type of feeling there. So it's an additive line of boots, so it's not replacing anything within Mach 1 or Mach Sport right now. We're just referring to it as Mach BOA to basically point out, like, it's an HV line. It's done with the same sort of ideology of fixed cuff and performance all mountain of the Mach line, but done with that BOA closure system across the lower there. So for us, it's exciting because it's a little bit different than what a lot of other manufacturers did, where they took an existing line of boots and here's your buckle version, here's your BOA version. We tried to do it in a little bit more intentional and specifically designed way about, here's a dedicated HV lower shell with a setup that doesn't replace anything that we've already got in line. It is purely a different execution if you like the feeling of the fit of BOA on your lower foot there.
Yeah. And with the boot lines, with the CAS liners and the boot shells are designed around, so you can mold. They're designed. I mean, our shells are designed around the foot anatomy also, with the liners matching up. And that definitely, you're working on trying to get people in a boot right away, and almost no work on it. It's like, wow, this is great. And I know this year I put my foot in the boot, and usually we heat the liner, put it in there. Then Nick's got to go. He's got to grind a couple spots. I said, "You're going to grind that spot?" He said, "Do you feel it?" I'm like, "No, but we've ground it for like 4 years." And he said it's another piece of the liners that we went into it this year that we didn't have to grind a couple spots. And my question is, that's definitely helping the retailers with less work and being able to fit things more. Is that still part of it also? I mean, I know it helps when a customer puts the boot on and they're done and they can walk out the door, but it's definitely, I think the retailers love that piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's we still believe in boot fitting as a really important tenet within boot sales. But at the same time, also, there are lots more customers out there. There are a lot of boots being sold in the world. And so you need to have the full spectrum of boots within the line there, the ones that, like, if you take a World Cup plug boot where it's like, all right, like, we're going to be spending hours grinding and shaping this thing to your foot, all the way to, some of the other boots in the line that are much more like, hey, I'm going to be skiing a couple days a year. Like, it's not super important that I have crazy fit tension within this boot here. So what we try to do, and sort of that, like, same redescribing the layup of the Mach line there, like, we try to have the highest flex boots there with a little bit more of that notion of, like, yes, they fit really, really well out of the box and can be comfortable and hopefully don't need a lot of work, but they still have that same level of customization in there if you need to do it. And the if is the important part, where it's like, let's build in the capability to customize if you have to do it, but not necessarily the requirement to do it if you don't, if it fits great out of the box. And then as we go through the, like, let's say the lower price point models within the line, or the less committed skiers there, it's like, how do we optimize those boots so that they're just super comfy right out of the box. And, ideally you don't need to do really much work to be able to enjoy it and get out for the couple days a year that you're looking to with that boot.
Yeah. And you talked a little about the 0G, and I'm curious if you're going to have the new 0G boot on while you're going uphill this week.
I sure will. Yeah. Yeah. That's the other one we've been working on for a year now. Updating the kind of, the 0G boot that we've had for some seasons now. I mentioned it was kind of fully launched in the 2019-2020 season there. That was like, we'd had a boot named 0G prior to that, but that was really the first time we'd done a dedicated project with the double blocking mechanism there, completely dedicated lower shelf fits. And our goal, being an alpine and performance brand, was really to move into that walking world space and say, all right, like, we're technically, let's make a boot that skis as well as it possibly can downhill. And then it's just relevant in the weight and walkability aspects there. So, working on the new one here, because obviously now we're in 2024 now, and that, 2019-20 season for some doesn't feel like that long ago. Even for me, it doesn't, saying it aloud doesn't feel like that long ago, but in product life terms, that is quite a while ago now. So when we dug into updating the new one here, it still felt like for us the philosophy of focused on performance, downhill performance, that is, and then just being relevant in the weight and walkability was still kind of like right attitude to have to the category. But as you had a boot in the line for quite a while, I mean, I mentioned the laundry list of things to improve across, whether it was Rustlers and Shivas or the bull skis, or, even in the mock world there, like, at that point, with how many people have been in those boots, how long, a lot of people have been utilizing them and kind of exploring new spaces. We had a pretty long laundry list of, like, even if we're not going to change the fundamental positioning of the boot, what are the things we could improve here? So the new 0G boot that we've got coming out is not a repositioning of that boot from let's say how it fits within the overall category or necessarily within our own line, but is hopefully just taking that, the boot that everybody loved and taking it to the next level. So walks a little bit better. It's a little bit lighter weight, skis a little bit better. I know I'm sort of like doing the trust me promise quote there, but like, genuinely it was just the goal to try and take the existing platform we had and take it to the next level there.
Yeah. Angela, we got to get some 0Gs and start going uphill.
Yeah, I could go uphill more.
I know he's looking at the catalog right now. He's looking at his other screen and he's looking at the catalog.
I've been shopping.
Yeah, put the little shopping cart together.
You got an 84 on there, an 88. Oh god, yeah. He's got his new boot.
Anyone considering, I mean, it's aside from the places you can go and the terrain that you can access, that is, unbelievable as far as the just conditions you can ski. I mean, it is an insane workout. I mean, think about a Stairmaster with weights on your feet is kind of the program, what you're actually going uphill there with. So even just the fitness aspect alone, again, my sort of perspective only getting into the space, let's say 6 years ago or so ago now, is like, it's such a fun space to be in. Like, ski touring is incredibly cool with where it can take you and the sort of different aspect of skiing it unlocks than just riding chairlifts and, making turns.
Yeah. And the satisfaction of doing it. There's nothing like earning your turns, and
oh yeah,
we have so many options presently to go to a corporate environment and have a good time. Nice to have options to go to a different sort of environment and have a good time,
Yeah, I mean, if you told people that you went to a resort or, anywhere and took one run, they kind of be like, well, why'd you go? Versus if you walk to the top of the mountain, suddenly the one run feels incredible.
Yeah. Well, and the things you learn, the way it brings, skiing and snowboarding, and I'm including the idea of like split boarding and that kind of thing, just going out and learning that not everything's groomed, that there are signs, and make sure you ski on that grass that's poking out of that snow, because the grass is going to hold the snow back. Like, just things that put you in touch with the reality of what the sport can be when it's not so manicured at a resort. It's a whole new world.
Totally.
And how fast now will you have to start thinking about down the road 6 years for something above the Anomaly? What's going to be in the Anomaly then? I mean, when does it start? I mean, there must be already a couple things just in terms of technology you're looking at that might not be the Anomaly line, but how does that work? Because it can't start like, oh, we're going to wait 3 years and think about something.
Yeah, we typically always have, let's say, a 5 to 10 year kind of like project charter, even if you have no idea what you're going to do in the space. So, you refresh the Russell Shiva project in the 22, 23 season, then you're like, all right, like probably coming back to that in the whatever that would be 28, 29 season there or something like that. Like you typically are aware well enough in advance when you're going to be coming back to certain categories, or just kind of like the ebb and flow of like products getting a little bit long in the tooth, even if, like a zero G boot, they're working great, but you probably got a list of things you'd improve with them. So we're usually thinking pretty far out as far as what we're actually testing. Again, there's that difference between like, we know we're working on this project that we're going to deliver a season from now, 2 seasons from now, that has a pretty like regimented, like we need to go through certain milestones and have molds on time and, like kind of sign off on constructions and graphics and things like that. And then there's the like sort of completely separate from being tied to a project, like the R&D of like, okay, we got this new material and we want to see what it does. And maybe it's applicable to this category or something like that, that kind of operates fully independently and not necessarily attached to a project there. And that's happening all the time. And it's typically that sort of like, close to the factory, our, head of engineering, head of development, and head of the test team. Like, some of I think their most fun days are when they've just like slammed something crazy that they know very little about into an existing mold and like, just go see what it does, see how it feels like. And a lot of times I'm sure it's all right, you don't need to do that again. And then there's a few times where it's like, whoa, like there's something there.
Play a little rock, paper, scissors at the top.
Yep, exactly. You first. You should drop in that first for sure.
Yeah, go, bud.
Yeah.
I'll film, I'll video.
Yeah.
So can we look back at anything, some of the promotional stuff that there might have been a graphic of a bona fide or something on a graphic, and maybe Marcus was skiing something different? Was he, how does the testing go? Does it sometimes you have some of your high level athletes out there like Marcus or some of the other crew skiing on stuff that has a graphic on it that is a current ski, but they're testing something else?
Yes, there are infinite games to play about like how you can be testing something in the future with a current graphic. That way, like, the person in the lift line just like takes a casual look at say Marcus's skis, wouldn't notice something. And then there's also the other game too, where it's like, you're going to be delivering something. Like, do you make a graphic that like is like kind of obviously an outlier and like is nodding to something and like telling an interesting story? Like the Rustler and Schuba skis, for example, we were doing a pretty big athlete test in Jackson Hole, like whatever that was, 2 Marches ago. And it was at the same time as there was going to be the free skier test there. There were going to be a bunch of industry people. Like, we didn't intentionally set it up where it was like, let's be right there at the same time as the free skier test. It happened to work out. They were like, okay, like this is all happening in Jackson Hole at the same time. And all of those skis, we wrote, "This is a test" in giant letters, had like flagrantly white outlier top sheets. It was like, rather than like trying to hide something with an existing graphic when you can see the construction is different, like let's call it out and have people like, oh, what are they doing? And so, yeah, there's the infinite games and yeah, you have full spectrum of hiding it all the way to kind of advertising it.
And how do you get it out to, you definitely want a broad spectrum. So thinking of like our PSA guys, our national team members, you don't just like send out, hey, they're all getting an 84. And Jonathan might get something in the Firebird line and one of the other crew might get something else. How do you are they asking you, or you're saying, hey, what would you like? We got these things to try.
Yeah. All the PSIA guys, are so closely connected to the brand as far as, what's going on within the line, what the changes are. And, obviously also thinking about their quiver and how they use the gear. So, we certainly, let's say, register an opinion of like for this year, like Anomaly 88 is going to be a super important ski. And so like with a Blue, for example, like would say out loud, like, hey, like, Anomaly's new, Anomaly's super important. Would love to have you on one of those skis within the line. But at the same time, like they're also not being dictated. Like you have to have the Anomaly 102, and Blue's like, well, it's not my ski. I wouldn't necessarily use that. So it's a give and take between all the athletes and the brand about what's important, what we're trying to advertise. But at the same time, like, they're some of the best skiers in the world. Like they know better than us. Like, yeah, I'm not going to use that ski. It doesn't serve a purpose for how I ski. So give and take back and forth for sure.
Yeah. And how many gambles do you take? Like, are there some things that you throw into the testing and you're like, we're not sure, but this is something we want to try? Because, you can't do that a lot if you're doing it because it costs money.
Yeah. And there's, I'd probably call them moonshots more often than trials. Usually we've thoroughly thought through things and gotten a lot of feedback about a direction we're heading. Like the Anomaly name change would be an example there where it's like, collective inhale. You're putting the Bull series to bed, and then and inventing a new name and kind of moving in a new direction. So there are things like that you're not sure it's going to work out. Like when we had the embargo date kind of release on Anomaly, like we got exactly, I would say, the reaction that we were sort of expecting, which is about half of the people are like, oh, that's super cool, exciting, like interested in what Blizzard's doing. And then half of the people are like, oh, like I love my bona fides. Like, well, the skis better be good. And so even when you're sort of like taking leaps of faith there, they've hopefully been well vetted. But at the end of the day, like they are always leaps of faith. Like if we're talking about both Black Pearl that we mentioned as far as the importance of that ski and how many are sung, like hasn't hit retail walls yet. Like not a lot of average consumers have been on that. They've been tested thoroughly. We feel super good about them, especially the 94. Like I think is one of the best skis we've ever made. But it's a leap of faith for sure to actually deliver it to the public, and kind of like, I'm sure every parent has the notion of like sending their kid off to college. It's kind of like that, where it's like, I hope you're prepared and ready.
Yeah.
Think about the Coke and Coke Classic. You remember that disaster?
Yes.
Yep. And when because I know you're going to launch to your retailers and that, and out to them first. That's probably a lot of what's going on next week. But when can people actually see them in the stores or in the demo fleet? Will it not be till next fall? Will it be some stuff? I know sometimes some of the line gets there before the end of the season.
Yeah, for us, knowing just how important the current Black Pearls are, current Bonafides, Brahmas, all of those skis are within the line. We really wanted to give the chance for people who wanted those skis and are it's not often the brand tells you when something is going to go away and gives you the chance to like go get one more pair. That way, hopefully a few years from now, when you're like looking at the Bonafide in your garage and it's in plastic, you can have that experience of like taking it out and like getting back on that ski that you loved for so long. So our goal is very much to like let the Bonafides, Brahmas, Black Pearls, even Mach and Zero G to some extent, like live within the market, kind of tell people what's new from the brand for next fall. But ultimately, I'll have all of it available in stores. Really starting in probably August is when you'd see it kind of more broadly available.
Cool.
It's a class move to give those enthusiasts of a particular ski an opportunity to grab some. Kudos to you guys for that.
Well, appreciate it. Yeah. It's not often that brands like tell you when something's going away. Usually it's just like the following fall and like, here it is. And like, oh yeah, that favorite ski that, you've loved for a long, long time, like discontinued. And so, yeah, hopefully, for especially, the Bull skis, but, maybe even within there, like whether it's a Bonafide or a Cochise, lots of people are like, all right, like, won't be able to get that, 2 years from now. Maybe I should go, get one more pair and take it out of the wrapper, have it as a ski for later on, when you want to have a new one.
Well, this has been awesome, Angelo. We finally get the scoop, and all of our listeners get the scoop early, man, as stuff comes out. Because, this is really, a week or two that you've kind of had the promotion out there. I saw it on Facebook, I think, like a week and a half ago. It's like, well, time to get it out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So starting to unveil some of it's again, that's sending your kid to college, like starting to unveil some of the projects that have been a long time in the works for us, but now we're getting this sort of public attention. So it's an exciting, but also for sure stressful time.
Well, this has been cool, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us. I hope you'll come back as we have some new stuff or let some folks know next fall maybe how or where they can go get them, where they can test them, when they can do some demos, and that would be great. And I know you're a New Hampshire guy. You're not too far away. So hopefully we'll catch up at some point. It'd be great to go skiing and see if I can keep up with you.
Sounds like we need to get Christian on here with Leslie and hear some of the antics when she was coaching him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, she still hasn't gotten my hands in order as far as still really hectic through the turn. But yeah, doing a co-podcast there would be awesome. And talking
that would be great. Absolutely. So thanks a bunch. It was great. And thanks everybody out there for listening. This has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company.